I don't know exactly what really happened to my previous connection. It just wouldn't let me continue the live stream. So I guess I have to just give a different title. So those who are interested can come back in. Okay, welcome back. In this today very live stream, I'm poised to talk about the new trajectory which African is shifting. And this very trajectory is very interesting. For a lot of you who have been following my channel concerning Maxwell Chikumbutsu, different opinion African New Silicon Valley is changing the game, and it's changing it in the way nobody saw it coming. And I think the main important thing about this very African New Silicon Valley that most people never saw coming, not even the West saw it coming, is its brutalness, that stoicness. Because when I saw it, I was actually wow. I never knew Africa is really preparing something that ballistic. I mean, wow. I'm like, oh my goodness. Now, one of the most interesting and impressive part of this very African Silicon Valley is not that it's actually starting up newly. It has gone past the building stage. It's just about finishing, but it's already making headways. But however, there is something very concerning. Why is it that the Western mainstream media, the mainstream media is not really talking about it? Nobody's hearing about it, because there is something about the world that we're living in today that a lot of people will come to agree with me on, that when certain things get shown on the mainstream media, people believe it's true, even if it is fake. So when we talk about Maxwell Chikumbutsu self-powered car, sorry, I'm always going to bring that up because Maxwell Chikumbutsu has laid the foundation that upon it, African can stand on and start building. So now, in the recent video which I actually uploaded, I talked about the African Silicon Valley. And trust me when I say it's not actually the Lagos Silicon Valley. No, this one is epic. This one is brutal. This one is powerful. This one is not smiling at compliance. This one is speaking defiance. This one is speaking resistance. This one is speaking sovereignty. And that is what makes this a different one. So there are too many things, too many powers, Western powers, as you call it, that is cramping down on Africa. Hey, being Harun, it's been quite a long time. How are you doing? So now, one of the most impressive thing about the African Silicon Valley that I never saw coming, I never knew there was any such plan, and it was coming out the way nobody expected it, and it's actually government funded. When we talk about it, it's actually government funded. It is rare because why? Let's take a look at the chessboard. Who has been on the chessboard on the neck of African? Who has been creating chains and shackles on Africans, making sure that they remain poor? They remain perpetually in the roller coaster of one enslavement, mental enslavement or another. We're talking about religion. We talk about school. Remember that author who talked about the miseducation of the Negro in 1993? It's playing out. And he says something that is actually very interesting. He said, if you control someone's mentality, how he thinks, you don't need to worry about the person's future. Even though if there is no back door, he's going to find one. He's going to bust one for himself. So Africa has decided to take the bull by the horn. And that is why I look at this very African Silicon Valley like some sort of, a revolution because nobody saw it coming. When I watched this in action, it is very monumental in a sense that it's building techs that rivals most of the big techs we're using today that are built on planned obsolescence. We're talking about Dell, HP, you name them, Apple, Samsung. I watched a product, a laptop that was designed and built from scratch to finish in African Silicon Valley, this very African Silicon Valley, and did a drop test and nothing happened. And I couldn't just believe my own eyes. But I know that the Western world actually knows about this a lot, and that is why they're doing everything possible to keep Africa here. So, for me, I am dedicating my channel to talking about Africa. And that is why you see me come on with this clothes today. I have suit, I have different kinds of, I'm certain that 99.9% of you who are watching this very video haven't seen me on this outfit before. So, and it is actually to put it into perspective that Africa is now, the time is Africa. There was something that was happening about two weeks ago about Japan coming to give Africa some certain portion of Japan to leave. And some people didn't see the fingerprint or the handwriting very clearly. But let me make you understand that it is not a coincidence. Japan is losing huge in the population. But guess what? Africa is not just having the huge population as of, is it last year or this year? That is what it was actually predicted that in 2050, that 1 out of 5 people you're going to be seeing in the world are from Africa. Do you know what that means? However, it is not just that Africa is actually outbursting in population. Africa is knowing the very problem, the very plague that is holding them. It is not the people that has been called before. It is not what we have been confused to believe. And that is the real awakening and the revolution behind the African Silicon Valley. Now, the African Silicon Valley, which I'm talking about here, be my guests, is actually in Botswana. It is something nobody saw coming, not even me. How would a country that is known for diamonds, not just only that, that just have 2.5 million people becoming the brutal uppercut that is speaking defiance? When you look at this is crazy. This is crazy. I was previously telling you about, I watched the drop test which they performed on the laptop which they built from scratch to finish. And it was mind-blowing. And I knew, realistically, the West knows our capability. They knows what we can do. They know we can do more than we can do. And that is why they are doing everything. They're fighting tooth and nail to suppress it. So in this very live broadcast, this very live here, I wouldn't waste much time because I'm going to be diving into another trajectory, which I'm saying if you are someone from Africa, you should watch this because it is very, very impressive. And I don't want to interchange it here. And the topic there, which I'm going to be talking about, is African spirituality. What it bets some kind of question, which I'm going to create a more realistic video about it. People have been asking, what was the religion African was practicing previously before the Western world came? And it will shock you to understand that there was no religion. That is what we're going to be talking about no, it wasn't actually Christianity. white Mike. No, Africa wasn't practicing Christianity. There was no religion initially before the European visited Africa. Africa was practicing something that is more powerful, something the West never saw coming, and something that the West, after realizing it, get to understand that the way Africa is going, if we don't stop them, they are going to become the gods. It took me really hard time to figure this out. And this is something that 99.9% people who are talking about Africa really don't know about, including me. I don't even know that Africa was at that very trajectory. Every other people were practicing one sort of religion to another. Africa wasn't practicing any religion. African were more of spirituality. Africa was practicing pure spirituality. When we talk about pure spirituality, that is where the gap between reality, physical, and spirituality merge. Africa way of communicating, or Africa wasn't actually worshiping any spirit or any metaphysical. I'm certain a lot of people who are hearing this are going to be shocked. Africa isn't worshiping any spirit. They are not worshiping any deity. They are just using either the stone or the tree as a portal to transcend, to communicate beyond the border of reality to invisibility. And that is very, very powerful. Because in so doing, they can communicate with the metaphysical, which the West are calling the quantum physics or quantum mechanics, right? When you hear quantum mechanics, that is what the Western world are calling it. So in that very situation, Africa was tapping into something monumental. And this is what gave birth to most African technology that lies before our food that we eat, our culture, our morality, where you see a parent will tell you not to steal. They told you he's a pagan, but he told you not to steal. He told you not to lie down to sleep with another person's wife. He told you not to cheat. Where did they get all this knowledge from? It's communicating with the spirit. However, what the West actually indoctrinated into us makes us much more weaker, much more susceptible to failure at a very huge rate. Because at this very point that we are right now, most Africans are scared of their cultural norms. Let me get at you before you go. Have you actually wondered why, since the inception of Africa, the name was renamed to Africa, since politics started making headlines, making decisions on what Africa should do, what the world should do, chairmen, governors, president get sworn into office. They are being sworn in using the Bible. But however, there is a problem with that. They are using one hand to get sworn in using the Bible, but on the other hand, they are building bombs. They are building ammunitions. They are building nukes, which is a sign of hypocrisy. You are preaching peace on one hand, on the other hand, you are building bomb. What are you building bomb for? So now here is the plot twist that you should ask yourself as an African or even a white guy, if you're listening to this very podcast, why is it that from the inception of politics, democracy, there have never been just one leader that was sworn in using African oracle? Do you think it's a coincidence? No, it's not a coincidence. Since 1960 to this very day, there has never been not even a councillor, not even a chairman, not even a governor that was sworn into office by African oracle. Why? Because the game of politics is not about transparency in the real sense. It is about fooling the people. It's about corrupting the head and using the population. That is what politics is all about. It's not about truth. Because if it's about truth, what they should be holding on their right hand to use to swear them into office is the oracle, because these oracles are incorruptible. Just imagine this. You sworn a governor in using oracle, and he made all those silly promises. Then suddenly realized after making those promises that he was handed what we call offer, one of some sort of, an element which you hold on your hands that transmits the power between physical, or create some sort of agreement between the physical and the spiritual. So after making those utterances, after making those promises, you suddenly realize that you are actually dealing with the oracle, or dealing with the gods, who doesn't take no for an answer, who doesn't take betrayal lightly, who doesn't even let anyone who steal or loot or whatsoever. You wouldn't even need to protest that the government is not doing well, that they abandon your community. You don't even need, because why? The real problem, the real utopia we are talking about here is between the government sworn in and the oracle of your village. And this, my friend, not even the West want to try that, because they have done that before and it was very catastrophic. And that is the reason why Africa is falling from one stone to another. Because they have abandoned the very root, the very foundation that gave them life. They have forgotten that very bet, the rebet that made them whom they are, that protected them, that gave them life in the real sense. Forget about the Jesus thing. Forget about the Muhammad thing. Forget about your Islam. Forget about your Buddhism. Because Africa was actually communicating with the metaphysical. So if there is a problem in the land, my dad has done that before, but I didn't know how he did it. But up to this very moment, as I'm talking to you right now, it is hard for me to actually go back to those times. Because how do you find who is actually the real person who is serving these oracles? But that is actually where the truth is. Because once you have said you're going to do this, it will be easy for human being to forgive you than oracle. So when you got sworn in by the Bible, you can go ahead and use this other hand and start building bombs. And you can start destroying Gaza and whatsoever, and create conflict. And capitalize on that conflict you created, that you want to create peace. But however, deep down inside of you, that peace is often not one of the ingredients you hold dearly to your heart that you want to give the world. Instead, it's chaos. So if we are going to change Africa to become the future of humanity, or to lead in technology, we don't need to do anything new. We don't even need to pressurize our governors or our president. All we need to do is to go back in time. All we need to do, if there's going to be election in 2027, we tell them we are tired of swearing in by the Bible. All those who have been sworn in using the Bible, what was the outcome? They are the ones who are promising to build bridges where there is no river. They are the ones who are choosing to build road without industrialization. They are the ones who are choosing to impoverish our youth and our incoming generations. They are the ones who are embezzling the funds that's supposed to use to make our own life better. They are the ones who are supposed to be having different kinds of Silicon Valley in different African nations. But instead, they choose to use the same money to develop Europe, America, hide the money in Swiss bank. And every single week, they bring a drama. It's either is a very dark man, or is Natasha, or is NMPC, or is Dangote, or is one rat or rabbit. Okay, White Mike. He said the Ethiopian Bible much different than the King James Bible. Okay, that's a question. Okay, thank you. What I want you to understand there is that the Bible is Bible, whether they changed it, whether they told you the Ethiopian Bible is different, that it has the book of Enoch that was erased, or it has some other erased scriptures that were supposed to be there. No, there is something you have to look at. You need to sometimes look at the anomalies to see the reality that is not in plain sight, that is not in fine print. And what are those anomalies? When did the Ethiopia Bible started popping up? When the Ethiopia Bible actually started coming into the picture is when African began to awake and refuse to go to church, start rejecting the indoctrination that has been used to change them mentally. In 2025, the Ethiopian Bible has never been so famous like in 2025. Why is that? It is such an anomaly that should raise eyebrows. Now, also, there is also another part of the thing which I want to use to explain the Ethiopia Bible. Do you also notice that Putin, for the first time, hinted about the black Jesus in Russia and start bringing up some archive? Why now? Here is the reality. Once you realize the truth, and the people who have been caging you using some sort of forced indoctrination, that we want to rewrite it and make it look just maybe something the same. If you don't understand it, let me refresh your brain. 2011, Obama and Hillary Clinton pulled off something that the West can't even do, unlifing Muammar Gaddafi and using NATO to destabilize their military. Now, I want you to notice something here that is similar to the Ethiopian Bible. They used Obama. Why didn't they, of every other white person, white politician, it is Obama. They did not see any other white person. And the only person they used is Obama. It is concerning. It is something that you have to understand. And if you understand how that political shift happens, it is the same thing with the religion. So politics and religion is not different. They are just the same with different names. It's more like having different car. You have AMG and you have the C300 that is not AMG. It's still the same Mercedes. It's just different model. I hope you understand that. So each time when you are awakening and the people who are using whatever they're using against you, either the school, the religion, technology, to confuse you, they just want to twist it to make it look very similar to something you can be able to reason with, such as like the Ethiopia Bible. However, there is another thing you have to understand. In as much as Africa didn't practice any religion before the European, we don't recognize any Jesus. Miss me with that. Our ancestors didn't. My father doesn't. The West branded them pagan for a reason. They branded them pagan so that we can forget our own cultural heritage. And when we forget that our own cultural heritage, they erase our identity, they baptize you, they change your name and give you a white man's name. And when we start going back into the Bible also, we start seeing a lot of other hidden truth. Why is it that a lot of name of the saints inside the Bible are littered with white people. It is concerning. So if they told you that heaven is for everybody, why is the name of the saints inside the Bible only the white people? It is very concerning. So which means if this name of the saint in the Bible are all white people, so which means that the heaven which they are preaching to you is the white people that should go to that heaven, because the Bible they are giving you is white people that they have a saint. They don't have a maker in that Bible. They don't have Nkpot in that Bible. They don't have Mabutu. They don't have Sankara. They don't have Traore. They don't have Mbazinwul in that Bible. So in as much as I don't have those names I'm calling as saints, then what makes you think you're going to find an African person in that heaven they're talking about? No, you can't find it there. However, some other person also asked me one very good question, which I often like to ask most people who are so Christian or so religion based. The miseducation of the Negro. I want you who participated in this very live to do this research by yourself. This book was written by someone in America. And that is where the statement I was actually researching to find out who actually said, when you want to hide anything from a black man, hide it in between the pages of book. And it's actually an American author that wrote that. And he said something, which I think I said it in the other live before, and he said, if you control any man's thinking, how a man thinks, you don't need to worry about his future, because you have already written his own destiny. You have already changed everything about him. If everything they have written about the Quran is actually for you, and it changed how you perceive one another, it changed how you relate with one another, it makes you to feel the other person who is a Christian to be your enemy, it makes someone whom they call a pagan to be your enemy, then it has changed you. I'm not seeing you going anywhere, whether be it heaven or whatsoever. But if it doesn't change you, and you still came to understand that so long as I bleed like you, so long as I sound and I communicate in a language the way you understand, and I do something similar to someone you can relate to, if you can recognize that I'm a human being like you are, and you feel like calling me some other names, then whatever makes you to think that way is something that is very questionable. All right? So now, back to African Silicon Valley. The West knows that we have a connection back to our ancestors that has the capability of giving us a backdoor or a shortcut to any innovation, any technology which they have today. And when you discover that you're about to fight with someone, an opponent that is very stronger than you, let's say like the fight between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, and you are very, very unsure that you cannot win the fight, what's going to be your best bet? Is cheating, my dear. You want to rig the system in your own favor because you know that your strength can't actually make you win. So you have to manipulate the system to suppress the other person whom you can't defeat. Now, I want you to relate that exactly to Africa. The West knows that we can leapfrog them in the way that we never understand. Take, for instance, most of the cars that have built so far, Africans were fixing these cars even before the internet started rising. And Africa was not there when they built those cars. Don't think that this is a joke. If the person who is watching this video with us here, who is Bin Harun Autofix, Bin Harun Autofix is some sort of a close friend of mine, and he knows this person I'm talking about. His name is Emeka. Emeka is an electrician who is not a graduate in Harvard. Emeka is not having any degree. As a matter of fact, Emeka didn't go to secondary school. But there is something that Emeka does that is very, very direct and very, very interesting and fascinating, that is speaking volume about Africa and anyone who is Africa. Listen to this very live broadcast today. Emeka is an electrician who make ends meet in diagnosing cars, different car make and model. And there is something very, very peculiar about Emeka. Emeka doesn't have any formal degree, any formal Western standard training in in automotive system. But what Emeka does very well, that is very striking, is that when Emeka has a very tough, challenging problem in cars, Emeka goes to sleep. He will just tell me I should leave the car, like as if something just spoke to him. Be my guest. He does it a lot and he drinks a lot. But me, I don't drink. All right? But when Emeka goes to sleep and come back the next day, sometimes he doesn't get an answer. Sometimes it takes like 5 days. Sometimes it takes like 7 days. What I'm telling you right now is not a story. It is someone whom I know, someone I work with every day. In fact, I work with him today. So this very story of Emeka here is literally what every African has in their DNA, coded into their DNA. Maybe in 7 days later or 10 days later, Emeka will only respond to go back to that car when he have dreamed and saw the car and walk on the same car that is giving him tough time to fix in physical, and he walk it and fix it in the dream. Whatever problem he found within that time he was sleeping is exactly the same answer is going to tell. If it is the ECM, this guy I'm talking about doesn't even know how to read a simple multimeter. He doesn't even understand the scanner. He doesn't understand the error code. This is a very strange story about Africa that is coded in every African. You just need to find yours. Because the more books you read about from the West, the more dumber you become. You are taught to read and not to think. But the more you start keeping those books away and start realigning yourself back to your originality, immersing yourself into the problem you want to solve, this is the back door that opens up another portal to not just only solving the problem, but leapfrogging it and even adding more. So Emeka will come back maybe 10 days later, maybe even a week or even 3 weeks later. But when he comes back and he tells you that what the problem is injector, or there is a wire underneath the steering column, that wire, some fuse there or some wires are burnt. But he never saw that wire initially. But when he go back to dream, he was shown the wire. He was revealed exactly why that car will not start. And when Emeka come the next day, Emeka will start up that very car. Hello, Mike Chile, welcome. So this very story I'm telling you about Emeka here is exactly the same story of Maxwell Chikumbutsu, people whom our ancestors, it is not Jesus, that revealed to them the secret, the problem they are trying to solve, which they are pondering their heart on. I've had that very encounter before. If you have had this very encounter, which I'm talking about, don't kill it. It is your ancestors that are coming back to create solution to you, through you. Depends on whatever I want to do. It might be negative, it might be positive. It depends on how you have immersed yourself in that very problem. Now, when I was 14, I read the Bible a lot. And when I immerse myself in any page so much that I kind of become so puzzled about that very page that I don't understand it. When I sleep, I found I, a pastor, someone like a pastor, appeared to me in my dream and started explaining that very verse. So, when I grew up, I get to understand that it's not actually a pastor, it is your higher self, it is your ancestral essence that we're coming back to explain those things better to you. We are lost in those qualities because why? We are reading too many books and we're believing in too many garbage that doesn't actually work. And I want you to understand something, which I've known for more than 20 years right now. If you come close to this, one step, it comes one step. If you move two steps, it comes two steps. But when you withdraw one step backwards, you can withdraw three steps backward. Anything at all. So the secret of knowing whatever, it doesn't lie outside you, it lies within you. But you have to harness that very energy, that very information for it to work. Now we are moving from African Silicon Valley to spirituality. I don't know if most of you guys who are here are listening to what I'm saying, but this is what has changed and shaped me today. If I told you things that I can be able to do now, is wow you. If I tell you how I harness knowledge to do some certain things above someone else, you'll be shocked. And I realized that people I get trapped into this saying that jack of all trades, master of none. And they use that to kill your dream. People who envies you, people who can be able to adapt to different astral planes and dimensions like you are. They get furious, they get jealous, they get envious, and they start using the word, some certain phrase to kill your spirit and start telling you jack of all trades, master of none. So, Africa is the future, whether I like it or not. They can try the best they can. But I want you to understand something. There is something much more bigger that is even coming up right now. And this is going to shake the very foundation of the Western and Asian world. What is that I'm talking about? The humanoid. And there is something very specific about the humanoid that is rising up. I'm going to be talking about it now in that video. So, when we're talking about this very rise of humanoid, the concern which I'm raising here is that it's actually female humanoid. Why female? I don't want to get this topic to be more broader than this. But like I said, if you are the kind of a tech-savvy guy who is good with your hands, like one of the guys which I'm also going to be showing in my channel, the guy is striving so hard to build airplanes. When I saw his work, I kind of get some chills in my body and cold ripples. And I got puzzled as to his inspiration to keep pushing without any funding, just turn his bedrooms into his workshop, to the makeshift workshop that's changing everything. The same thing, you can do it today. So the bottom line is Africa is rising. And it takes you as an African to believe in yourself. That revolution is going to hit everybody. The politicians are just doing whatever they're doing. But it's coming in as much as it's government that funded the African Silicon Valley in Botswana that is literally challenging the Western dominance. I am really highly lifted to see that happening in Africa. And I know we have the purest form of spirit, as much as genuine love and empathy. There are people in this world that doesn't have soul. They don't have conscience. They are very fragile emotionally and the rest of them. But we are not those kind of people. The system is created to destroy us, to slow us down. So guys, for now, this is where I'm going to be wrapping it up. If you have any very question, bring it up. If there is anything we need to do more as African, we need to be more of ourselves. Stop trying to look like the white people. Just be yourself, be Africa. See this very cloth I wear here. I value it much more than the suit, whether I like it or not, whether the white suit. I value this because this is my identity. This is whom I am. So if anybody have problem accepting me like this, then I don't care. You can use the middle finger. Nothing about your life is going to change until you start believing in yourself. So guys, since I'm not getting any further response from you guys, I'm gonna be closing this very one up. I'll see you guys later. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Thank you for being part of this night live. More videos about Maxwell Chikumbuso is gonna be rolling out. There are a lot of hidden bunkers about Maxwell Chikumbuso, which I'm going to unveil in my channel. So a lot of West guys are really going like, is it real? And okay, thank you, White Mike. Thank you for being part of my night broadcasts. The next topic which I'm going to drop this one here is the ChatGPT response. The Black Americans are feeling so touched by it. Before I go back to bed tonight, I might have some few things I'm gonna say a little bit more about it, and probably test group and ask them, and that's gonna be like reviewing what has happened to ChatGPT after being political, after choosing to be black instead of white. You know, that very decision was really brutal. Somewhere going in the comment section, there's a whole lot about that. This thing, people going on the comment section telling me that they don't need the machine to validate them, but that's very wrong. Sometimes as a hero, you will forget your word, you forget whom you are. Someone have to remind you that, look, what you're doing right now is not you. You are above this. You have risen so high. You are soaring up like an eagle. You are so dazzling, beautiful in the sky that people can look at you and feel relief of their pain and grab a hope and get refreshed and reborn to forge ahead, even despite the fact their futures is fraught with obstacles they're still going to have that hope just by looking at you. So sometimes we forget whom we are. We forget that we are the lion. We forget that we are the gods. Someone have to remind us. So I'll see you in that very episode. I'm going to be closing this one here right now. Thank you for your time. Bye for now.